we're going to welcome to the show right now, dude. I'm so excited. We're going to welcome to the show Mr. Donovan Duke of Infinite Journey out of Dallas, Texas. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you for being here. It's so cool to have you. And I want everybody to know that Donovan is a pro and he's like all about the lighting and the setup, and you look fantastic, dude.
I was so worried about it. Like an hour ago, I'm just running a little tests and
you're
moving
like,
things
dude,
around. And,
you're like, I see a shadow in this one spot. I gotta move the
yeah,
light. I'm like still doing that. Like I'm looking in my
yeah,
camera. I'm like, no.
I moved the chair. I moved everything. So we're good. We should be good.
Well, I want to give a quick shout out to a few other people who look like they have joined. Gina is in the house, Cheryl is here, and Marilyn is still rocking. Yeah, dude, thank you so much for sending your questions. And Harriet is in the house. Welcome, Harriet. Thank you for being here. So, Donovan, the thing that I love to do is have my buds from the local music scene on the show and like chat about your history in music, because so many people know who you are, and you guys are big, not just in Dallas area, but across the United States. You guys play all over the place. So many people know who you are and who Infinite Journey is, but they don't know the back history on Donovan Duke and his music career. So why don't you take us back? Like when was your first introduction to music? And I gotta know, like, what was your first album? That's the big thing that's burning for me.
My first album was the Foreigner 4 album that I would always sneak into my brother's room and take to listen to. And so my first taste of like, man, this sounds really good was Lou Gramm. And from that point forward, I was always just really attracted to those higher pitched voices.
Wow, that's a really great choice. There's a couple
Yeah.
of foreigner bands in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and oh man, the singers for those bands. I forget the guy who I saw. I saw him at the Gas Monkey Live, and that
Mhm.
singer guy was nailing it. But that's a great choice. And Foreigner 4 was an awesome album. When did you
Yeah.
first feel like you were like, I want to sing, and like when did you first start tapping into that?
So I was born in Honduras. I was born in Central America. I'm half Honduran. My dad was American, and he lived there till we moved here when I was about 8 years old. And he always played albums around the house. And I remember loving to sing, not necessarily in front of people, but I would just always have like a tune in my head. Or if I was playing outside, I'd be singing. But I remember once we moved here to the United States, I had an aunt that was living with us, and I was sweeping the kitchen, and I was singing "Careless Whisper" by George Michael, and I remember feeling like somebody was watching me. And I turned and looked, and my aunt had dropped everything that she was doing, and she was like, "You sound amazing." And I said, "Really?" And she was like, "Yeah, do it again." So I sang it again, and I guess that was the very first time that I felt like, man, like I've got a gift. Moving
Wow,
forward from there, I didn't grow up in voice lessons. I don't read music.
right?
I didn't grow up in church choirs. I didn't do any of those things growing up. As a matter of fact, my room was my rehearsal room, and I didn't. It didn't feel like I was rehearsing. I was just in my room jamming, with my mixtape ready to hit pause when the song came on the radio.
Right, exactly.
Um,
I'm with you.
yeah, yeah, to show my age. But anyway, yeah, and in my wall where all my posters were, that was my audience, and I would just yearn and just imagine, man, what that would feel like just to sing to a big crowd. All the videos that I watched on MTV, the ones that really got to me were all the ones that had live crowd footage. Those were just always just make me crazy. I just couldn't imagine getting that type of energy from people. But I was too shy. I was very, very shy growing up. And so oftentimes when it was time to sign up for a talent show, I wouldn't sign up. I wouldn't sign up. I'd be scared. But I would sit there and watch a talent show and in my head go, man, I should have done it. I should have done it because I felt like I could do a good job. I felt like people would go, man, this guy's good. Moving on into high school, a lot of friends just driving down the road, they're your buddies, so you're not shy, so you're all singing. They would all go, dude, man, you can really sing, man. And still never did anything with that. When I got to college, though, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, whenever that happened with your family and they recognized your voice, how old were you exactly at that point?
I was 8 years old. I was
Wow,
8.
so
Yeah,
so
and I
young.
remember I remember hating that every time we had a family gathering, Thanksgiving, anything like that, somebody would go, hey, sing blah blah blah, or sing this or sing that, and I'd go, oh my gosh, because to this day, believe it or not, I don't like singing for like 4, 5, 6 people.
No,
Like if
man,
I'm on stage,
you're under the microscope at that
yeah,
point. Like that's the
yeah,
thing is it's like people it's probably really hard for people to understand. But if you have a big crowd, you have more confidence, you know?
for sure,
And if you
for sure,
have a small crowd, you feel like they're just there with the magnifying glass, you know? It's
exactly.
hard,
So
yeah.
my mom would have a friend over, and she'd go, hey, sing that song. Remember the one that you were singing yesterday? Sing it for her. And I'm like, Mom, no. So yeah, it was really hard. So I got to college and had a little bit of liquid courage in me. You know, I had a couple of beers
It
at a party that
happens.
had a
I can
yeah,
relate to that time in
yeah,
life.
that had a big karaoke party for the whole college. It was like a on campus humongous parking lot karaoke party, and a buddy of mine was like, dude, come up there, man, just do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I went up there, and I actually, my very first song that I ever sang in front of people holding a microphone was Just Once by James Ingram. It's the one that goes, just once, can we figure out what we keep doing
Oh
wrong? I
yeah.
did that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so people went insane, like in this parking lot, and I just ate it up. You know, I got bit by the bug. And so I, man, I didn't look back. I think 2 weeks later, the student activities director at my college stopped me on campus and was like, hey, we're having a talent show. You want to do it? And I was like, yeah. And so from there, it just grew into like doing talent shows for money or singing at someone's wedding, stuff like that, just for, you know, for pay. And then I sang a song at my grandmother's funeral in Chicago. And I guess a family friend at the time, his name is Xavier Nogueras, heard me and was interested in talking to me about being a part of his indie label, which was a hip hop and pop R&B label. And this was during the time of the boy bands and I guess the Latin invasion. Like this was right around the time of Ricky Martin and Enrique Iglesias and Mark Anthony and people like that. And I'm bilingual, and so we were really going to try to capitalize on that. So I recorded a 5-song EP, um, signed to this indie label, not making any money or anything, but this was at the time where MP3s were first becoming a thing.
So it was like in
And so,
the like maybe the late '90s or mid '90s, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, probably
gotcha,
like 90, 97, 98. And
gotcha.
so MP3.com hadn't even gone public yet. Now it's not that big of a deal with the way that things have happened. But at the time, it was all unsigned artists on
Oh
MP3.com.
yeah, that's. I mean, we
Um,
actually released an album on MP3.com because then they started doing the
yeah,
thing where they would burn discs, and that's one of our albums. That was the only way you could have ever gotten it. Like it's not available any
yeah.
other way.
So my EP was on there, and I was number one in the R&B charts for I want to say 9 weeks. I was number one overall for four
Wow,
weeks.
holy
I
cow, man!
was I was number one on the pop charts. So I'm getting all these downloads, man. I'm getting emails from people in Sweden and Japan going,
Right.
"Hey, where can I go buy your album?" And I'm like, I mean, you can't right now. You know,
Wow.
I was so green and didn't know anything. But MP3.com themselves, before going public, thought that I was going to be one of their first. The word that they used was cyber stars, you know, because downloading wasn't a big thing then.
Cyberstar, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so, man, we got flown out, myself, my manager, we got flown out to LA, got the star treatment, driving around in a little limo, going to dinners with the president and vice president of MP3.com at the time, who were twin brother and sister. And they really thought something was going to happen. So they put me in contact with a couple of music attorneys. And in my early 20s, like that, I didn't even know that you needed one or who you need to talk to. And anyway, little bit disappointing in that things really felt like they were heading somewhere. So when I met with these two guys in Beverly Hills, one of them is actually Will Smith's attorney. I remember walking in the hallway and I saw the pictures of his artists. He had Boyz II Men, Alanis Morissette, Will Smith, just a who's who down that hallway
Wow, wow, yeah.
of pictures. And
Was
I'm in
was
the
was that intimidating at all? Were you just like, oh wow, holy cow?
no, it wasn't intimidating at all.
You were
And
just like,
that's
yes.
why, man, I just feel in my spirit. I've always felt it in my spirit. Like, man, I belong, man. Like I belong. I've got confidence in that. Listen, I lack confidence in some things in this life, but that's not one of them. And that's just something that I've just recognized and have been able to accept, that I've been given a gift and I have I'm fortunate to be able to use it on any level, on any level. As I got older, I began to realize that I don't need a multi-selling platinum album in order to make an impact on people and to leave my mark.
That is
So,
such a true statement, man. I wish everyone could hear that. It's so true. Very true.
so this guy is like, man, I have this one little Latin sounding song. I'll have to find it for you and send it to you called Whispers. It's got a lot of congas and stuff, but it's in English. So it's a really romantic, slow song. Um, and he goes, man, I think that's going to be perfect for the Wild Wild West soundtrack. So I'm just like, what? That's a Will
What?
Smith movie.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, no way.
So yeah, so I'm sitting in this office and he calls Will Smith. He's on speaker and he's like, hey, I'm here
No.
with Donovan and Xavier. He goes, hey, I want you to hear a little bit of this because I think it'd be perfect, because they thought it would be cool to have an unsigned artist on a soundtrack full of signed artists. Like, how cool would that be?
Wow. Yeah,
And so,
especially for
yeah,
you. Dang.
yeah, exactly. I'm
Wow.
like, yeah, you like it? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you like it? Come on, come on, come on.
yeah, so they played it for him. And I remember him going, wow, man, that is really nice. And that was it. I never heard another word about it. And, I mean,
Oh man, but
opportunities.
still,
Yeah, I
but
know.
still, I mean, to have Will Smith be like, "Hey, yeah, that was nice.
That
That's
sounds
enough
awesome.
to keep in your
Yeah,
pocket and just hold on to forever." That's
absolutely.
incredible.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So, nothing, things kept going really slow. I had a record deal offer on the table for one album with Fever Records out of New York City. I had another one potentially on the table from Jive Records.
So were these
Um,
songs that you were recording and
mhm.
with this label and everything else, were you actually writing the music or was someone else writing it? Was it a band
Yeah,
and did they just
no,
go
it was
find
a
a
team.
band?
Yeah, no, it was a team effort between myself and Xavier, who was at the time my manager and my producer.
Uh-huh.
And so we would write together and then find the instrumentation. We would put
So
session players and stuff
you
together.
didn't have like a band that you got session players
No,
and stuff like that. So you would write
yeah,
the like the melody lines and the lyrics or just the lyrics or
both,
both?
both. We would work together.
So cool.
It was very much a an Elton and Bernie
Yeah,
type situation.
that's
But
cool.
yeah, and what was really cool is we just had this really smooth connection. X couldn't sing at all, but he would try, and I just knew where he was going. He would sing something and it was super pitchy, and then I'd sing it back to him, and I'd go, "Is this what you're thinking?" And he'd go, "Yes, that's exactly it." And so we would just
How
go
cool
from
is
there.
that? I mean, and I think the Bernie Elton, reference is spot on because those folks that don't have that gift to be able to use your voice to express their intent is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, it
You
was
know?
a really good time, and it kind of ran its course. A lot of things fell through for one reason or another, and I felt burned. There's no hard feelings whatsoever. I love that guy, and he brought out the best in me. I promise you. There were so many times. The first time I ever recorded my very very first song, that was my song, and we recorded it. I remember the first time I heard the final playback, I wept because I just remembered all of the heartache and fighting. And hey, I need you to run that line again. And I'd go, that was perfect. And he'd go, it wasn't perfect. Do it again. And I would do it again. And I'd go, that didn't sound any different, being a spoiled brat. And he'd go, you know what, man, I'm going to play you what you said was right. And then I'm going to play you what you just did. And I'd hear it and I'd go, oh, you're right. So I had to learn to be humble and to let someone else's ear kind of guide me. You know what I mean? And so it was, man, it was something real special. So it fell through. I guess I felt burned by the music industry because things didn't happen the way that I thought they would.
And so,
So I walked away from it.
what about when was that? How many years ago, or what year was that when
I
you
would
kind of
say
fell
that was
through?
probably, let me see, my daughter had just been born, so it was right around the year 2000. Daria was
Gotcha.
born in May of
Okay.
2000.
Cool. Cool.
And so I walked away from it like nothing. Zero music, nothing. People are like, "You still singing?" I'm like, "Nope." So a few years later, cut scene, I'm singing at church on a regular basis. And do you know the name Jason Wheelington? Like,
Yeah.
he was a
Of
friend of mine.
course.
Yeah.
I was at
So
his
yeah,
funeral. I bet you were there
there you
too.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing
So
guy.
we went to church together, and we hadn't met yet. But here's what happened. So my my pastor had asked me for Valentine's, "Hey man, I'm going to preach on faith for couples. Do you think you could sing Faithfully by Journey?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? I'll give it a shot." Never performed Journey, never sang Journey, never even karaoke Journey. That wasn't even one of my go-to karaoke night songs with friends. And so we had 3 services at the time. It was a big church, and we continued to grow. And so between second and third service, a guy grabs me by the arm. It's Jason, and he's like, "Hey, man." I said, "Hey." He was like, "Dude, that was the best cover of Journey that I've ever heard in my entire life." And I'm a musician, and I was like, "Oh wow, man, thanks. That means a lot." And he goes, "Hey, do you mind if I record it and maybe put it on YouTube?" And I was like, "I don't know, knock yourself out, go for it." So he did. And just about 3-4 weeks later, I guess someone had emailed him through YouTube and said, "Hey, who is that guy? I'm trying to put together a band." That guy will remain nameless, but that was the very beginning of what would eventually become Infinite Journey. And so myself and Mike Cooper were the two that he got in contact with. We met, as you know, Mike Cooper's the bass player and band leader for Infinite Journey. Great, very one of my closest friends.
He's a great guy. I love that guy.
I
Shout out
love
to Mike.
And so, Coop.
Coop in
And
there.
so anyway, we met at this guy's house twice, and both times we just got this weird vibe from him. It just wasn't a good fit, but he and I really locked in and really had a good fit. So he said, "Hey, man, like, you want to ditch this guy and just kind of do our own thing and just kind of see where this goes?" And I was like, "Man,
The
let's do
irony
it."
of it all, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? But at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel right, man, you cannot force it.
You're right. You got to
can't force
have
it.
that chemistry. You totally do, man.
That's right.
It's something that you know right away. It really is. Like
Yep.
you can tell when you're
Yep.
playing with people if it's not going to work. You can tell.
That's right. That's right. And so that became our first group, and we were actually called Streetlight People. We had a couple of guys in that band that didn't pan out, and it wasn't. Sorry, I lost some of my lighting. It wasn't necessarily that there were any enemies or anything like that. It just wasn't a good fit. So we ended up squashing the project. About a week later, Coop called me and said, "Hey, man, you think you want to give it another shot, just you and I?" And I said, "Yeah." So just through calling in favors, finding out who knows who, someone knew John Arnett, who is now our drummer. Someone he and Paul Bullock were in a band at the time that was called the Breakfast Club. It was a '80s party band, and so they came on, and it was a good fit.
I'm sorry, I always do this. I'm really weird about timelines. So what time? Like when was this? What year was this?
And this was almost 9 years ago. So about
Gotcha.
8.5 years ago.
Gotcha.
Yep. This
Okay.
was about 8.5 years ago. And so now it was really starting to come together because we'd have these rehearsals, and there's Paul, there's John. We had Gene Perry. His name is Gene Perry. He's actually from a Rolling Stones tribute. Currently he plays keys. He was our keyboard player, and I don't remember if he was just too busy, what was going on, but he had a hard time like being all in. And so he said, "Hey, man, I found somebody for you guys." And it was Bill Cuffey, who had just moved from Las Vegas at the time. So I think Gene maybe did 2 shows with us. It wasn't very many. In comes Bill, fits right in, feels like family. And then we're off to the races, man. We're a band. And within a couple of years, we opened for, I remember at the Wildflower Festival, we got to open for Loverboy and Kool and the Gang.
And the thing is people may not understand this, but as a cover band to be able to open for a big act like that, that's a big deal. You know, it's just it doesn't really happen that much. So that's a really big deal.
I mean, a year prior, we only played the Voodoo stage, just the restaurant and House of Blues, and I thought that was the biggest deal ever. I thought it was such a big
I'm
deal.
at House of Blues. I'm right here. I'm in the building.
Dude, I was like, dude, my Facebook's gonna look awesome because I'm gonna be singing, and then behind me it's gonna say House of Blues.
Exactly.
And nobody knows what stage I'm on.
They don't know.
Nobody's gonna know.
I'm huge. I've hit the big time.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
funny.
And
Little
people are commenting on the picture, going, "Dude, House of Blues, man, that's awesome." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so it was just funny because I remember asking the sound guy, "Hey, can you add some reverb to my voice, for the house?" And he was like, "We don't have reverb on this PA." And I was like, "Oh." Anyway, it was just funny and how big time yet not big time it was.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just like the precursor to what was to come. I mean, because you guys have played just huge events and venues and for thousands of people. What do you think your biggest show has been?
Man, there were double, like there was no less than 20,000 people at that show that we opened for Loverboy 4 and Cool and the Gang. That was a sea of people. That felt like the biggest. And then obviously being on World's Greatest Tribute Bands, which was, I mean, all over cable television, had to have reached an amazing amount of people too. So that one felt pretty big.
How did that
We've been pretty fortunate.
How did that show affect your career in the band?
It made us be a lot more national. We started getting calls from Oregon or Wyoming or California or Canada or wherever, where the phone would ring and we'd be like, yeah, wow, and they'd say, hey, I saw you guys on AXS TV. And as a matter of fact, we were going through airport security once. And a lady was like, hey, it's been a journey. I saw you guys on TV, man, on that show.
How crazy, right? You're like,
yeah,
whoa, what's happening? That's so crazy, man.
yeah.
Wow.
Man, soon after that, the best feeling ever, I was getting on a plane for my day job. I travel quite a bit. And a guy, as I'm trying to find my seat, goes, Donovan. And I look up and he's like, oh my God, come here, man. My wife's not going to believe this, dude. Take a picture with me. And I was like, okay. He's like, dude, we're huge fans. And so he's taking pictures with me. And there's people like behind him going, who is that? I want to take a picture.
I don't know who he is, but it sounds like he's important. Can I get a picture with him?
Yeah. Can I get my picture too? And I'm like, it was just funny. So
That's
it's really
so
fun.
awesome.
It's cool to get recognized from time to time.
No doubt.
It's definitely not the driving force for me personally. It's opportunities to play with people. Like we played with Night Ranger and Winger. We played an after party for Foreigner and Rick Springfield. We've gotten so many opportunities to chit chat and just pick the brains of some really impactful artists, man. That's just, for me, that's been the best part.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing of it is it didn't come by accident. You guys are an incredible band, incredible people. I mean, you guys are real together. You don't have any at least visible drama that I can see. Y'all are just very together. Every time I've talked to any one of your band members, everybody's super professional. Just interested in putting on a good show and really work so hard to bring the music of Journey to the stage and just bring it back to life. And you guys just freaking nail it just so much. We were talking about earlier some of the original music that you've done, and I know you said you're going to try to find something, but is there really anything out there? Like, is there some YouTube video or some video you did at one point in time for any of that music that you recorded, or somewhere
I don't think so. It was so early in the game. I'm gonna have to see if there's anything out there, because honestly I haven't ever gone searching for it.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like, because that was about 20 years ago that all that stuff kind of closed down, and so yeah, with the internet not being huge at that time, I guess I could see how that would be hard. But I would love to hear some of that original music just to see kind of what you had put out. Cool. Do you feel like when you're singing the Infinite Journey stuff, do you find yourself trying to sound like Steve Perry, or is that just really your natural voice? You're just over there singing.
Yeah, that's my natural voice. I don't think, okay, there may be a couple of little nuances here and there, vowel sounds that he does that I try to channel. But overall, there are so many things that, especially later on, I think early on, it was like, dude, you got to channel some Steve Perry. But I started noticing as the years went on that I became more and more comfortable to do some things here and there that he didn't do live. He's never done live. Those were things that I do. And people still enjoyed the show and people still loved it. I never got anybody go, hey, you sang that differently or whatever. So I started taking some risks here and there, I guess in a way to kind of show people like, hey, this is me. This is who I am, which is another reason that we don't dress up like the band. And that's a decision that we made very early on. Early on, we decided that we're going to tribute and be as true as we can to the music, but we're not going to be out there in mullet wigs. And, I mean, especially with a band like Journey, who doesn't necessarily have an iconic look. Because if you're going to pick a look, are you going to go with the 70s, with Neil Sean and his big afro? Or are you going to go with the 80s? Which one are you going to go with? There's really not one. And so we made that decision early on to just be as true to the sound as we possibly could.
I think that Journey is a good band to not attribute the look, but just the music. I think that was a really smart decision, and you guys have a really clean look about you, and it doesn't feel any less like you're experiencing a Journey concert. You know what I mean? at
Yeah.
all. It
Yeah.
wouldn't help me at all to have you in tails or whatever,
Yeah.
or have like a silly putty on your nose to make it really big, or
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever it is.
And here's
I,
and hey, and spoiler alert, if I put on that mullet wig, I won't look like Steve Perry ever.
ever. It's just not gonna happen. But I
Oh,
almost feel like that, like with music like Journey or like Rush or something, it almost feels like trying to put on that look would be a distraction. It's like,
I think
with
so.
you guys just being you and going out there and playing the music, you can really just ingest the music to its fullest extent without any distractions, and it's just
Yeah, for sure.
a wonderful way to go. So, are you at like looking into expanding out and doing other projects, or is this pretty much your only thing? Like, do you have any desire, like built-in desire, where you're like, I really want to be writing, or I have this dream thing that I want to do with music?
I do have a dream thing that I want to do with music. I still write. I don't write as often as I used to, but I love singing. I love being in the studio. As you know, I suggested a microphone for you. I have a home studio that I love
And
to
by the way, it
just get
worked
in
really
there and
great.
just,
Thank you.
man, it's such
It's
a
a
great
great
mic,
mic.
and
It is.
people always think it's some expensive mic, and it's just not, man. It
Yeah.
was a great deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just recently started a side project that's going to be a George Michael tribute. So if you haven't heard about it yet, it's going to be called Everything She Wants: The Legacy of George Michael, and we're pretty
Which
excited about it.
that's like almost that's coming full circle in this conversation too, because you said
Yeah,
one of the first songs you
I
sang
started.
was
Yep,
"Careless
yep,
Whisper." It's so cool,
yep,
man. That's so cool.
yep. Yeah, and George Michael's always been a really big influence of mine. He was a guy that had a lot of soul, and that's something that's always come very naturally to me. I don't listen to soul singers and think, oh, well, I'll add that to my music. It just comes out. It comes out of me naturally, and so it was a great decision. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but I wanted to wait. I didn't want to be that guy that's in six different bands. I've got a career. I've got a great day job. Um, and so I just wanted to make sure that I was at a place where I could handle it all before I brought on a second project. And obviously, with COVID and everything, it's really slowed things down in terms of the George Michael project. But I still want to pursue it. I still want to do it, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. And for
Oh
that one, I
yeah,
will wear a wig.
that'll be awesome. Wear the tight
Yeah,
jeans and gotta have
yeah,
faith. The whole thing. That'll be
yeah,
awesome. So
yeah.
with that original music, are you actually tapping into that like during COVID? Are you able to like work on writing and maybe collaborate with people to start doing some of your original music?
Yeah, actually, I don't. You guys may all know, but Bill Cuffey stepped away from Infinite Journey to pursue some other stuff. We certainly are thankful for him and miss him very much. But we brought on Steve Trevino of Live 80 fame, and he is an incredible artist. He's an incredible writer, a multi instrumentalist, and so he and I have been collaborating back and forth with a few things that we've got cooking, and it's original stuff. So it's great to have brought him on and kind of started to develop that friendship.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I don't know if you knew
Yeah.
this, Donovan, but I actually was in a band with his brother Manny for many years
Oh
back
wow, no,
in
I didn't
the
know that.
early 2000s. So almost 20 years ago now, we had an original project called Asher. And some of that music is actually available on my website. You'll have to go check that out sometime. So I met
I will.
Steven through Manny, like way before I was in the cover scene, the cover music scene in Dallas. I was in original music, and he was in
Mhm.
another band. I forget the name of it, but he was in an original band back then. I'm really excited to hear that because yeah, Steve is he's a great musician, a great singer, piano player, guitar. I mean, he does it all. I was curious. You
Yep.
mentioned also earlier that like you don't have any training. This is just like natural born talent. Do
Mhm.
you just are you naturally like able to harmonize? Like, can you harmonize? Like, I know a lot of lead singers that's really funny. They could be a really amazing lead singer, but they're not able to harmonize
Mhm.
at all. Like, it's just not natural for them. Are you able to harmonize?
Mhm. Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, typically when I record my own stuff, I'll do my own harmonies.
That's so
So yeah,
cool.
that's something that
Yeah.
my dad grew up Church of Christ, and I don't know if you're familiar with that denomination, but we didn't grow up Church of Christ, so my
Uh-huh.
dad did, and apparently Church of Christ doesn't use instruments, and so there's always a lot of vocal stuff going on, and so he came from a big family. My father was an amazing tenor, beautiful voice, um, and I think that's a lot of kind of what brought me along. Even my dad just jacking around, we'd hear I'm serious, we'd hear the AC kind of humming. So the AC, and my dad would go, "Hmm," and he would start singing the exact same note as the AC, and my dad would go, "So what's the harmony above it?" And I'd have to listen to him, and I would just have to jump on it, and that's part of how I learned.
Wow, that's really cool. I've never heard anything like that before, but that's so
Yeah.
cool. And like I am like well, not the opposite, but I can't sing lead. Like I don't have a lead vocalist
Yeah.
thing, but I
Yeah.
have that thing too where I can do harmonies. Like it's always just been very natural for me. And so when I talk to people, especially lead singers, that I know
Mhm.
of that are very talented lead singers that can't do harmonies. I'm like, how is that even possible? It's like, I'm like, it's just a different ear, I guess. But wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That is so cool.
It is, and it's like a muscle that has to be worked out, because if you constantly aren't listening to those parts and you're just singing lead, singing lead, singing lead, it's like I'm telling you, you have to work it out, because you'll start losing that ability
Yeah, it's like a muscle, exactly. So
for sure.
are there any big shows coming up here soon for Infinite Journey that you want to tell everybody about?
Actually, right now, I think the next one that's coming up isn't until March. I think we've got something coming up when Lava opens back up. We've got a couple of things coming up. Nothing concrete yet. Obviously, with COVID and everything going on, we're kind of ramping up slowly. But I'm confident that as the year goes on, things are gonna go right back up and get back in the swing of things.
Very cool. And one thing I forgot to mention to people, and I'm going to take this second to show everybody, is about 5 years ago, Infinite Journey came down to Deborah Gloria's photography studio and participated in the photo campaign, which was super cool. So I'm showing that picture right now. So this is actually 5 years ago. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, so I was like, kind of just taking a little trip down memory lane earlier
Memory
today.
lane.
Yeah. And so I actually have a shot here also from when you guys played at Drummathon. I think that was in
Oh man, that was
2017.
awesome.
It was so much
Yeah.
fun. You guys killed it. I think you guys went on at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was just such a prime time to have you guys play down at Drummathon. And then
Yeah.
also the most recent thing that we've done together is we did that video together for Stone in Love for the video collaboration, and that was so much fun. And I'm just kind of
Oh
trying
man.
to spin that for a second for everybody to see what that
Yeah.
looked like. But that's
Yeah. Let them check
actually
it out.
available on our Breast Cancer Can Stick It YouTube channel. And this collaboration was done with myself and Kelly Vaughn from the Breast Cancer Can Stick It band, along with Stephen Trevino from Infinite Journey, and yourself, Donovan. And then we also had Patrick Smith on there, who is with a Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin tribute band, and super cool. And you can find that on our YouTube channel. You can see right there, everybody chimes in and is rocking out. So much fun doing that. I wish I could play
So
it
much
right
fun. I
now.
loved it.
I wish I could play
Yeah.
it right now. They're just seeing the video without sound. I think actually
Yeah.
it might have sound on it, and it's probably really annoying to hear me talk over that. So I'm like, oh no, I'm torturing everybody who's watching. They're like, oh, I see that and I hear it, and you're talking over it. But anyway, so if you missed it, because I think I was talking over it, that was a video collaboration that was done with myself and Donovan and Stephen Trevino from Infinite Journey, along with Kelly Vaughn from Breast Cancer Can Stick It band, and Patrick Smith on bass there. So it was a lot of fun, and I hope we can do another one. I think, without telling anybody about it, I think we've got something else that we might be able to do. Again, I'd
Yeah.
love to collaborate with you, and obviously, Donovan, if
Always
you
a
need
good time.
you need drums on any of your original material during the pandemic, especially, and I'm around and at my drum set, let me know. I'd love to
Of course.
do anything with you again. It's so much fun, and I snagged you a little early today, so I've kept you on quite long enough. And we're going to head on over here in a little bit to our Clubhouse. We're going to be doing a live broadcast on Clubhouse, a new social media app, here in
Sweet.
just a few minutes. So, Donovan, dude, thank you so much. It's so cool to learn all about you, man. And guys,
Thanks for having me on.
yeah, totally. Everybody check out Infinite Journey. They are all over the magical interwebs on Facebook, Instagram. They've got a website out there as well. Be sure and look them up and check them out. This is a tribute to Journey that you're just not going to want to miss. So be sure and check that out. Again, Donovan, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We loved having you, and we'll see you next time and talk real soon, okay?
See you guys soon.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure.
Take care.